Thank you, Kyron. All right, so Kyron kind of covered some of this already leading into the course section or course completion, but these can serve as reminders. Course completion is required for students that are in departmentalized classes grades 9 through 12. So that's any state course code other than 1000 is considered departmentalized. Of course, 1000 is self-contained. And then that should spur some thought, because if you have independent study, which most districts or should have had since every district was required to, if you chose to report independent study for your high school students using state course code 1000 for fall 2, that's a change that you're going to have to make to require course completion to be reported for end of year 1. You can leave it 1000 and not report those courses, but if they were courses that you want to report, you'd have to report each subject as its own class. So that's one of the nuances for course between course completion and course enrollment. When you're just counting enrollment, 1000 is perfectly fine. You're accounting for that student being there on census day. But when you're trying to report course completion and you want it to be count for secondary students, each subject needs its individual course or the content captured by a state course code rather than 1000. Of course, all this is optional for grades 7 through 8. So course completion does not have to be reported for those middle school students. Grades, credits attempted, and credits earned are required for grades 9 through 12. So that's the completion part of course completion, not only the content and the curriculum that they're taking, but what was the result. That's going to come from the student course completion file, the SCSC. And if you're going to choose to report for your middle school students, only the grades are required. Credits are not going to be required for those middle school students. Then submit student course completion data for all official grading periods. Again, this is to exclude summer school unless you're trying to capture CTE completion in summer school or a college course. You can opt to report those, but they're not mandatory. This is your fall, spring type semesters that we normally don't report summer school unless there's a behavioral incident. So, and you can choose to report that course if it does count towards a student's CCI measures, but it's not required. So what we mean by official grading periods is the students that were there long enough to receive a grade, whether it's pass or fail, A, B, C, D, F, if it's a numeric scale, whatever it is. You will receive a warning. I believe it's a Cert 99 for those students who are enrolled during the year but don't receive a grade. But it's a warning because sometimes you have a student who shows up for a day, 2 weeks. They're not there long enough to earn a grade. And you want to review those. You want to see if the student was there and if grades should be reported. But there are specifically warnings just to alert you, not to prevent you, because there are scenarios in which students are enrolled but aren't there for an official grading period. And then lastly, submitting course completion data for students in departmentalized courses, grades 7 through 12, helps us to identify CTE participants.
Yeah, so as Nate was stating, we only require you guys to submit course completions for grades 9 to 12. Then, of course, by submitting course completion data for students in departmentalized courses, it also helps us identify CTE participants, okay? So what are the attributes that it's being collected inside the CRSE file? So we have here your course content. We want to identify who are the students who completed CTE courses based on the state course code, who are the students who completed grades in college courses and in leadership and military science courses. So all of these are identified using a state course code. And on top of that, if you have college courses, you have then a subset of courses that you only have to report for us to identify that that student is in a college course. So let me just bring up the code sets, I believe. Let's see. I think on the next slide, there would be a part of that. So there is only a set of state course codes that is identified as college course. So if that student is, let's say, in a calculus or math course, there is a specific course code for that that you have to identify. Now, if your students are in a CTE course that is also getting college credit or is in dual enrollment scenario, then you report a CTE course code in the 7,000s and then identify the non-standard instructional level code as either 23 or 24. So that's how to properly identify these college courses. Now, aside from that, we also want to determine in these courses, CTE courses that you identify that you're providing, are these taught by CTE credentialed teachers? We want to know that because the CTE-IG funding and Carl Perkins funding require that you need to have CTE courses taught by a CTE credentialed teacher. And so by checking the CTE high quality indicator with a Y, you're telling us that that course is taught by a CTE credentialed teacher. Also, by checking a yes or no, that would also impact how you view reports, which we will explain later on. And then, of course, you have your CTE attributes. So by reporting the student in a course that they completed, like a CTE course or pathway, then the student would also be identified as a completer in your ACGR or adjusted cohort graduate report, and also in your CCI for the school California School Dashboard. So we have a question here. How do we report students who took courses at the local community college? So
We'll demo this just shortly, Francine, but when you're reporting college courses, if the student takes a course at the local community college, if it's not a CTE course, you have to use a dedicated state course code. You have to, otherwise it won't count towards the CCI. So if it's, any type of math course, it doesn't matter if it's algebra, college level algebra or calculus 2, or if the student's taking statistics, right? It's all going to be 9273 college credit. That's what it's always going to be. The only time you report the non-standard instructional level code, which we'll go over in the demo, is when you're pairing it with a CTE state course code. So if you have, whether the course is taken at the local high school or at the college, if it's a CTE course and it gives college credit, it's either going to be dual credit, high school and college, or college credit. And these codes pertain to the non-standard instructional level code. These two codes do not apply to any other content area. So if you wanted to try to report algebra 2 with the state course code, I don't know which one it is, but with a CalPAS state course code for algebra 2 or calculus 2, and then try to get the college credit to be recognized using these course codes, it would not apply. They wouldn't recognize it for the CCI. So just understand, if you have any kind of art, visual art, dance, you see the content areas here, you have to use these state course codes for it to be recognized for the CCI. And then just because you can't capture CTE curriculum and content without using the state course code, they've allowed college credit and dual credit to also report that for the CTE courses. So we're looking at a course section record in detail. So okay, this is what it looks like if you submit all your files online. This is what it looks like in CalPAD. So your content, of course, comes from your state course code. The course description relates the content. So if you were to have a CTE course, intermediate web and social media programming, your course is going to have to indicate whether that it's articulated to a post-secondary course, right? And that means there's an official agreement between your district, your LEA, your charter school, and most likely a community college. It doesn't have to be a community college. It could be any post-secondary kind of institution. However, most often it's a community college. And that if there's not an agreement kind of making a sequence of curriculum between high school and college, you don't have a articulated course. In general practice, course articulation is not exclusive to CTE, but this field is. So if you have other tracks or other, maybe it's STEM, not CTE, but it's STEM, right? You cannot tell us that it's articulated. This is specifically for CTE courses and only CTE courses. So you'd want to let us know if it's articulated, yes or no. Also required for CTE courses is you have to tell us who's providing that course, who's funding that course, whether it's a ROP, ROC, or the district. And then is it a high quality CTE course? A high quality CTE course generally is taught by a CTE credentialed teacher. The teacher specifically has been certificated to teach that CTE content. There's a second part, right, that says that the course has to be designed using the state approved standards. But if you're using a CTE state course code, that's what you're saying, because that content relates to those CTE state standards. So if you have a course where it's not aligned with CTE standards and they're doing some kind of career or technical type curriculum, you wouldn't use a CTE state course code, right? That's why you want to make sure that your curriculum department is looking and applying the correct state course codes, because they, just because you have students carving wood, that might not be the appropriate woodworking class. It may not be a CTE class. That might just be an elective, right? You have to have specific standards for a CTE state course code. You can't rely just on the name. And often we see the confusion between STEM curriculum and CTE curriculum. And then lastly, I almost forgot this with CTE course is sometimes CTE courses are also IB courses or AP courses. Use the CTE state course code, and you have this AP IB course cross-reference. This is to be used for CTE courses that also provide AP or IB credits, right? And so you can also map it.
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Hope you are too. And so then outside of CTE, the state course code also defines all curriculum, right? So if you have used 1000 in the past, even for fall 2, this won't allow you to submit the file. Well, in previous years, you could submit it, but you would never get any kind of result, right? Because it's just not applicable for course completion, only departmentalized courses. And so what I was trying to say earlier was a lot of people opt to report independent study for fall 2, just using state course code 1000. And that's fine for fall 2, because we're just counting the students' enrollment and staff demographics, nothing pertaining really to the course. But for course completion, you have to have a departmentalized course, so that those 4 or 5 different subjects the student was taking as part of that their independent study program, you're going to want to report those individually as their separate classes, so that you can report the grade and the curriculum, right? There is no way to get CCI metrics from a self-contained course, right? It doesn't provide any information, just says multiple subjects. And so if you're not in the habit of reporting independent study by subject, and you have secondary students, you may want to change your practice starting now and then continue into that into next year, so that it's easier. You're reporting consistently in the same way. That's a consideration. And then we talked about college courses. If they're a CTE course, you have the course instructional level code, and that's where you would have college credit or dual credit. Again, if they are not a CTE course, like if they're a college course, another way in which you get CCI credit, you wanted to report the college, the most appropriate college course. And I don't know that it's so important that I show you a specific college course. I mean, the one thing is if you're looking them up online, I would say just type in college and the different, they're in alphabetical order, I think, not numerical order. And so I usually relate the courses by the number, not necessarily the name. So I would type in college and it'd give you an assortment of the courses to choose from. Also, if you're working on online maintenance, there are historical codes because you can go back and update data from years past. So just be aware that some of the codes are not applicable. So, you know, in fall 2, we told you that you're working in the 9,000 series, the 7 to 8,000 series, and 1,000. That's generally the only course codes. There's some 2,000s and 3,000s from years past that are not applicable anymore. So we're just going to move on from this and talk about student course sections. So student course section file, just like the course section file, is very similar to what was reported for fall 2, but completion requires significant more information to be reported. In fall 2, you didn't report grades, credits, Carnegie units, or whether or not that student earned UC, CSU credits, or that course met, you know, UC, CSU standards. So those are things that are required for end of year. So just general information, grades are 3 characters, right? So you can put, if a student got an A, you can put an A plus, a 100, right? It's alphanumeric up to special characters and up to 3 characters. That is to accommodate non-standard grading scores or non-standard grading metrics. So you have some, you know, some flexibility there. The credits attempted and credits earned, pretty general, right? Semester courses typically 5 credits, you know, full year course maybe 10. And then Carnegie units, generally semester course is half a Carnegie unit and a full year would be 1. Your student information system, however, does this calculation for the Carnegie units. And so it's not something we expect you all to know. However, in the data population training for course, we talk about Carnegie units in more detail. So I saw several of you were new. So we have playlists on our YouTube training channel and in Bridge. All these courses should be there in Bridge as well. And we have an end of year playlist. And then the course data population talks about what's required to the course section. It's not specific to fall 2 or end of year. We go field by field. So that would be one if you're unfamiliar. And so let's look at it. So this is the course section details in test. This is our test environment. And just, this is on the top are the fields related to the curriculum, the course content here. And then we enroll a student into that course. We can look at a student course completion record in detail. And it's very small. There's not many fields to walk through here. And so what you can populate is the marking period. That's not required for fall 2. It is for end of year. Then you have your credits attempted and credits earned. Again, these are required for end of year and not fall 2. You have an example of what a student's grade most likely would be like. Then your A through G requirements for UC and CSUs. And then Carnegie units. And typically they might look like 1.0 or 0.5. That calculation is done. But These grayed out fields, student name, SSID, local ID, this is all the student data required for fall 2. So you can see there's several more fields. What this is 6 additional fields of data that have to be reported for course completion. So it's not much, right? You're going to extract it from your student information systems. However, it's important to know that there is a difference in what's required. And most likely, if you're new, you just want to make sure you're extracting the correct file type. It's SCSE, not a SCSE. But that's generally the data collection for student course completion as it pertains to end of year. Yep. So, Kyron.